Hi boys and girls, Grandma Orange here. Week number must be about 9 or 10 now. We are going to move in our Bible to the second book in the Old Testament, the book of Exodus, to read the story about Joseph and his brothers. If you remember last week, we talked about Joseph and this beautiful coat he'd been given and how his brothers hated him and wanted a coat like that and sold him into slavery and how he became a prince, saved them from starving. Well, today we're going to move on with the same story about Joseph and his brothers, but now they've grown old and they've died. And their children's children stayed on in Egypt, where they became a very large family. Later on, a new king began to rule, but this Pharaoh didn't remember Joseph, and he didn't like God's people. He made them into his slaves, and he beat them, and he made them work harder and harder. God's people cried out to God to rescue them, and God heard them. He remembered his promise to Abraham. He would look after his people. He would find a way to set them free. One day, Moses was looking after sheep when something caught his eye. A bush was behaving very oddly. It was flickering with flames, but its leaves weren't burning up. He took a closer look. "Moses!" boomed a big voice. Moses jumped back. The bush was talking to him. "I have heard my people's cries," God said. "I have seen their tears. So I have come down to rescue them. Go to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go." Moses was afraid, but God said, "I will be with you." So Moses went to Pharaoh. "Pharaoh," Moses began, "God says." "God?" said Pharaoh. "Never heard of him." Moses kept going. "God says, let his people go free." "Why should I?" Pharaoh said. "Don't want to, won't." So he didn't. So God gave Pharaoh 10 warnings called plagues. First, God turned the river Nile red into blood. No one could drink the water, but still Pharaoh would not let the people go. So, God made frogs. Well, I'm sorry, this is Moses talking to Pharaoh, saying, "Let my people go." Sorry, children. And Moses is saying, "I won't." So, first he made the Nile River turn red, and now he has sent frogs hopping and leaping and jumping. In your bed frogs, in your hair frogs, in your soup frogs, all over everywhere frogs. "Make them go away," Pharaoh screamed. "Then your people can go." So God took the frogs away. But Pharaoh changed his mind. "You can't go," he said. Then God sent zillions of gnats. You know what a gnat is? Tiny little flies. But still Pharaoh said no. So then God sent swarms of flies. Flies buzzing in your eyes, buzzing around your head. And after that, sickness, horrible boils, hailstones, a storm of locusts, that's big grasshoppers, and then darkness when it should have been day, until it seemed that the whole world, creation and everything, was coming undone, falling back into darkness and emptiness and nothingness. Remember, that's where we started. There was nothing. Each time Pharaoh said, "Make it stop," and I'll let the people go. And each time when God made it stop, Pharaoh changed his mind and said, "Actually, no, you can't go." Finally, Moses warned Pharaoh, "Obey God or he will have to send the worst thing of all." Pharaoh just laughed. So God said, "The oldest boy in each family of Egypt must die, but my people will be safe." God told his people to take the best lamb, to kill it, and to put some of its blood on the front door. When God passes over your house, Moses explained, God will see the blood and know that the lamb died instead of you. Boys and girls, here's a picture of the doorway where they've taken the lamb's blood and they've put it on there to show the angel of death that comes through. The people that live in here believe in Christ. They've sacrificed a lamb. They're safe from the death. That night, it was just as God had said. Suddenly, piercing the darkness, echoing down the corridors of the palace, came a blood-curdling scream. Pharaoh's oldest son had died. At last, Pharaoh did what God said. "Get out!" Pharaoh shouted. "Just go!" And so that very night, Moses and God's people fled out of Egypt and out of slavery. Children, they had been slaves of Egypt for 400 years. They were free at last. God's people would always remember this great rescue, and they would call it Passover. Remember? Because the blood was over the doors, so the angel of death passed over them. But an even greater rescue was coming. Many years later, God was going to do it again. He was going to come down once more to rescue his people. But this time, God was going to set them free forever and ever. Thank you for being good listeners today, boys and girls. See you next week.
All right, I hope that you guys remember the actions to this song. You know it, don't you? Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, 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 said a Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, a burning bush told me just the other day that I should go to Pharaoh and say, got to get my people out of Pharaoh's hand, lead them all to the promised land. Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So me and my people going to the Red Sea. Pharaoh's army was coming after me. I raised my rod, stuck it in the sand, and all of God's people walked upon the dry land. I said, Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I said, Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, old Pharaoh's army was coming too. So what do you think that I did do? I raised my rod, I cleared my throat, and all of Pharaoh's army did the dead man's float. I said, Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, yeah, sing it again. Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, 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 said a Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, yeah, yeah.